And welcome to everybody to Sports Spectrum. My name is Jason Romano, and we're going to have a really great conversation today with Wesley Woodyard and Kyle Korver. And if you know Wes, he's played in the NFL for 12 years. He's been on the Sports Spectrum show, the Sports Spectrum podcast now a few times, co-hosting with myself. And we interviewed the McCourty brothers. We interviewed the Tennessee Titan teammates of yours, Wes. But now we're diving in a little bit into the NBA and a really deep topic, obviously, with all that's been going on in the world. But let me just welcome Wesley Woodyard as the co-host back to Sports Spectrum. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Oh, man, it's great to be back in Sports Spectrum. You know, of course, the platform is great, man, to get a chance to share the love. And that's what it's all about, man. Today, man, we're joined by Kyle Korver, 17 NBA veteran, drafted in 2003, NBA All-Star, played for, played for a lot of teams, man. Had a great career. The Hawks.
You got the list there?
Cavs. I have the list, man. I'm kind of nervous, man, because I'm a three-point guy, man, and I get a chance to sit here with one of the best three-point shooters in the game. Currently Milwaukee Buck, Kyle Korver, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I thank you guys for inviting me on this. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk. Let's do it.
Yeah, man. So with the COVID and everything that was going on, the NBA season was kind of cut short, and now you guys are getting a chance to possibly play back in Orlando, starting the season up on July 31st. How do you feel about that? Of course, being in the number one seed. I know you wanted that shot to get a chance to get that ring. How do you feel about starting back up?
We're really excited. I think maybe there might be some teams that maybe don't really care about the season starting back up, or maybe you're in the playoffs, maybe you're not. Maybe some teams don't really want to win anymore because they don't really have a chance at a championship. They'd rather have a better draft pick. But the Bucks, we feel like we have a shot. Like we have a team. There's a few teams in the mix, and we feel like we're one of them. So when all this went down with COVID, we were like, is this maybe this won't wait? Maybe we're not going to get this opportunity. And so it's been quite the stretch for everyone in different ways, but certainly for us, being on this team and feeling like we have a chance, we're excited to get this going again.
So what have you been doing in the not the off season, but this downtime with COVID to keep yourself in fighting trim and be ready to go for that phone call for the season to start?
Whatever we can, I mean, the Bucks, they brought some weights to my basement, but my basement, like parts of it are 6 feet and parts of it are 7 feet. And so I'm like, trying to, not hit my head, but try to stay somewhat strong. We have a treadmill. I start going for jogs outside because that's, you got to get some fresh air. I hadn't just run in like a decade, run. I don't got to stop. I don't got to change directions. I don't got to play defense. I don't got to I just put on some headphones and jog. And so, try to stay in shape that way. But my neighbor's got a hoop. It's like 7 feet tall. So I got the dunks on. I was about to say you're still dunking, hanging on their rim, shooting with my kids. This is the thing. Like with the season starting back up, I think there's a lot of people afraid of COVID and getting sick. But for me, I'm worried about getting hurt.
Yeah.
If you haven't worked out in a while and you just go right into the playoffs, like they are maybe talking about, that's a lot on your body, especially when you're 39. So.
Man, that's
just doing whatever we can.
That's high intensity, and you briefly spoke about it, man. Being a father of three, I'm a father of four. Being inside with COVID, I'm sure your kids are keeping you on toes, man. And it's great that we're fathers first. A lot of times that we don't get a chance to take off of that athletic role, but when we come through the doors, man, we're fathers first. So what would be a message to those young men inside your locker room that, hey, fellas, this is the way to approach life? Because I know for me, I had a great veteran who brought me into his household and allowed me to see what a family actually looked like. And I was like, this is the picture that I want to portray. So what can you give? What kind of encouragement can you give to those young players that want to be a 17-year NBA vet and a father of three?
Well, it's a lot of work. Like, there's no easy way to do this. I think you got to keep your priorities straight. And for me, I have my faith, and then my family, and then basketball. I certainly try my best at my job. This an incredible opportunity in a whole lot of ways to play basketball in the NBA. But through this COVID-19, you see what's essential and what is not in life.
Yeah.
Right. And your family and the just having so much time with them right now. Like this whole COVID, if you like your family,
It's great.
it's been okay in some ways, right? If you don't like your family, maybe this hasn't been so good. But I mean, I think you can say whatever you want, but I think, like you were saying, you have to be able to show it. And I honestly feel like, a lot of my witness in the beginning as a Christian is just, showing how to be a good husband and a good dad, and saying like, yo, this is my family and this is how we do it. And me and my wife, we hold hands and we love each other. And I think, to me, before I try to share Jesus, I have to establish some of these relationships and connecting over family and our kids and how you raise them and how you love a wife. Like, that's where those relationships can the conversations, the good ones can really happen.
That's a great point that you bring up, because I always tell, whenever I'm trying to mentor a younger man, I'm like, your kids have a firsthand picture of what love in a household should look like. If you're showing them what a mom and dad should do, like, I make sure that my kids see mom and dad are going on dates, and that's what it's about. And your father was a great role model for you. He was a pastor in the church. How was that growing up as a PK, a preacher's kid, a preacher's kid? How was that growing up?
Bro, you don't even know. I was a preacher's grandkid, a preacher's kid, a preacher's nephew a couple times. I'm a preacher's brother. I'm a preacher's cousin. I don't know what happened to me, but like, everybody was a pastor in my family, and so it's something that we all have a story in faith, right? Like, maybe some of us didn't have faith, and that in the beginning, and that kind of steered us one way. Maybe some of us grew up in a church that was really strict and all about the rules, and that shaped us in different ways. Certainly, being a preacher's kid has shaped me in some ways. But I have a wonderful family, man. I mean, there's a lot of privileges that are in life, right? And we maybe talk about some of those later. But coming from a home with a mom and a dad who are healthy, who love the Lord, who love me, that is an incredible privilege that I have. One of the greatest, if not the greatest privilege that I've had. And so I have a great family who's loved me and showed me what it was to live in community and to serve the best you can. And so there's challenges too, right? You get a lot of pressure and you feel like you're being judged and watched all the time, but for sure, like, the good far outweigh the bad.
Yeah, sorry, Jace, go ahead, Jace.
I was just going to do a reset. Kyle Korver and Wesley Woodyard are joining us here on Sports Spectrum. I was actually going to pivot here real quick, Wes, and just because I really want to hear your reaction as much as Kyle's as we kind of turn. It's a hard turn to make if we're going to go into what we're going to have a conversation about with all that's taken place, certainly in the last 8 to 9 days. Mm-hmm. And certainly the murder of George Floyd and everything that's taken place has been so horrific to watch and terrible and sad and all that, every word you could think of. But I do want to take that pivot a little bit, just because I would like to start with you, Wes, and then you can kind of take it over to Kyle, just with reactions, just some of the emotions, the thoughts, the feelings. Wes, why don't you start and just describe what these last, 8, 9 days have been like for you, and then I'll let you and Kyle kind of go forth there.
Man, it's that the feeling of disbelief, hurt, upset, outraged, all of those feelings came to me when, again, I saw another black man being killed by a white cop. And, to me, the only thing that comes to my mind is spiritual warfare. And I think that's something that gives me hope in these times of tough times, man. God has a place in everything. And if you're able to stay steadfast and stay in his words, and I think COVID helped me to be better in this situation, because I was able to get away from everything and to dial into my word and to be spiritually fed from my mentors, from my wife, and pouring back into my family. But to go back to George Floyd, man, it was disheartening to see people that are supposed to protect the innocent, people that are supposed to protect the citizens, they're not doing their job. And to see another man pleading for his life on camera with no help and people standing around filming it, that's scary, because that's the world we live in. Everybody wants to record something and nobody wants to stand up. And I think, Kyle, man, you when you released Privilege, when you brought that article out in April of 2019, last year, and if you guys haven't read it, I guarantee you by the end of this interview, you will be reading it over and over again. It's on the Players Tribune. You can go to theplayerstribune.com and read that. And Cal, man, it was just great, because so often in life, you have to hit that reset button and you have to look yourself in the mirror and check yourself. And I'll start off with this. I'll read a quote that you read, and it says, "I have to continue to educate myself on the history of racism in America. I have to listen. I'll say it again, because it's that important. I have to listen. I have to support leaders who see racial justice as fundamental." Like, that alone is where we need to be in humanity, man. Like, being good is where we should be striving from. So I want you to allude into how it was that you came to feel. There was two incidents that happened, but could you explain, like, how did you come by to get these words to write this beautiful article?
Well, I mean, it was a series of stories. I have an interesting story in this space, and just that I was born in Paramount, California, which is outside of Los Angeles, where me and my family, we were the minorities, and then I moved to small town Pella, Iowa, 10,000 people, and everyone's white. And then I went to Creighton, where there was some diversity in college, and then I went to Philadelphia, where I was the only white guy on the team my rookie year, and then I went to Salt Lake City, Utah, and played for the Jazz, which Salt Lake City, Utah is a wonderful place, but is awfully, awfully, awfully white. And then I went to Chicago and Atlanta and then Cleveland and then back to Utah. And now I'm in Milwaukee, which is, some say, is the most segregated city in America still. And so I always assumed that because I've lived in these places, and then because I've been in the NBA, and because I have African-American friends and teammates, I always assumed that I knew more than I feel like I certainly didn't feel like I was part of the problem. Like, can we say that? Like, I'm brought up in the church. I am taught that everyone is equal in God's eyes, that, red, yellow, black, and white, we are precious in His sight. We are all the same. But then Black Lives Matter came onto the scene, and I saw the pain in my teammates' eyes and my friends' eyes, and the anger and the frustration, and it hit me. I don't understand what I think I understand. And if I want to be a better friend, a better teammate, a better citizen, if I want to truly represent the heart of God,
yes,
I need to start doing some work, right? And I think the part that hit me so hard was just like, I thought I was okay. Like, I thought I had a bit of I'm not using certain language. I'm loving on people. I'm giving back to my community. How have I missed the mark? How does my heart not break right now? How am I questioning Black Lives Matter right now in this movement? And it was just all these thoughts and confusion inside of me. And so that just put me on a path of trying to be more intentional with my conversations, opening up some books and starting to read.
yeah,
And just trying, I mean, as a white man, trying to understand the best that I can.
yeah,
And
buddy.
and so that Black Lives Matter, that was in like 2013. I mean, I was born in 1981, so this is not like a bragging story right now, right? Like, and then, like, so when that happened, I was just like, I got to start, doing my own work. And then there was the incident with Tabo, which I referenced in the article. And then there was another one in Utah. And so in Tabo, so I think I said in the article, but we're sitting in this team meeting after the Utah incident. And we're all frustrated. We're trying to talk about what the team's going to do. And I look across the room and I see Tabo again. And I'm like, it's been how many years? What have I done? What kind of a friend am I? What kind of an ally? What kind of a Christian am I? Can I ask that? Right? Like, who am I? And so that's where that piece came from. And certainly I don't have everything figured out. Like, I'll probably stumble through this conversation that we're having now a bit. Like we're all this is but this is the work of a white man right now, right? Is to try to feel the pain. I'm so hopeful that more people right now, especially white Americans, especially white Christian Americans, are having a moment like what I had back in 2013, where it's just like, yo, I don't understand this, and I need to try. And it feels like some people are, right? Like, I don't know. I don't want to keep talking.
No, you're fine. I commend you so much, man, because what you said, being a Christian, and it brings me to 1 John 4:20. If someone says, I love God and hate his brother, he's a liar. For he who does not love whom he has seen, how can you love God who he has not seen? And man, it's just like, how can you say you're a Christian and still have hate in your heart for a different race? And again, I want to go back to, this is spiritual warfare. There shouldn't be a black or a white or a brown or a yellow. Once you're covered in the blood of Jesus, that's the only color that you should see. And that's the only banner that you should hold up. So I commend you for looking in the mirror, asking yourself, what can you do better, and educating and listening to your friends and supporting those who are supporting the rightful cause. Because so many times people, they feel uncomfortable. They don't want to be on this side. They don't want to be on this side. So it's tough, man. And like I said, I commend you. And that's what black men want, the black race want. Like, we want to come together as a whole. Like, we're the same guys that go into these schools and speak to kids and pour into the lives of all these different racial kids. It's just like, we're a family. In order for us to be better as Americans, man, we got to be true Christians, and it starts within our heart, man. And that's where I say I commend you for checking yourself. And I'm a firm believer of holding our men accountable. And again, I'm gonna be referencing some of your quotes, man, because they were great. You say that, as a white man, I have to hold my fellow white man accountable. We all have to hold each other accountable, not just for our own actions, but also the ways that our inactions can create a safe space for toxic behavior. And that part right there, my man, when I read that, I'm like, it's so many times that all it takes is one person to step up and confess that, hey, this is where we're supposed to be going, and things can be on the right path. And like, I commend you for doing that, because in my life, I grew up in Georgia. There were so many safe spaces for toxic behavior to happen. I can recall an incident where, I was guilty before I even had a chance to fight for my right of being innocent. And I was 6 years old. Me and my brother were accused of stealing games. And it's just so chaotic in the world that nobody really wants to give a fair chance to anybody that looks different than them, man. And it's one thing that we have to come together as men to challenge our other men. So, and I know you say you've been searching for those answers and everything, but I just want to commend you again for taking that right step in the right direction. That's what we need for healing in this world.
There's a lot of action steps that we can take. I think there's a lot of talk about solutions right now, the conversations that I'm in. It feels like there's more white men thinking about solutions, and this is gripping them differently. But like, my message has been like, right now, awesome. I'm all for solutions, but like, we got to continue to reshape our hearts. This has to come from a real place. Like, this is real work, man. And the work, this is not about doing more charity. Right. That's not what this is. We have to break down and scrape out what's in here, and we have to live differently. We got to be, if we want to be leaders, the church has an opportunity right now to lead in this space.
Amen to
Like,
that.
everything that we need is what we believe.
Yeah.
Right. But you can't have reconciliation until you have confession. And that's where we have to be. And we have to confess our sin. We have to understand our story. The church's story is not great in this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you do some history, we don't have a great story. Right. Our silence has made us complicit, and there's been a lot of silence. And so, like, like holding each other accountable, like it's hard to do this though.
Yeah.
Right. Because everything feels like this all the time. And that's where, like, we need love. We need God. We need the Holy Spirit in all these conversations. It's hard for this. This is not a, claim back the ground or prove someone right or wrong thing. Like, we need the Spirit in this thing. We need healing, and this can only come from Him.
Yeah.
But
someone asked me the other day on Instagram, and they were like, how can you still believe in Jesus Christ with all of the pollution and the religion, and you see this and you see that? And I'm like, here's the problem. The problem is, you put your hope in men. I don't put my hope in men. I put my hope in the only one true God and my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And that's where everything should fall back on, because everything else doesn't matter. If I'm looking up to a man to show me the right way and they let me down, of course I'm going to be upset. But Jesus was the only perfect one to walk this earth. And whenever you fall short, you need to go back to the blueprint of life, and that's the Bible. And my question to you is just like, what do you say to those fellow Christians that are on the fence or saying that, hey, maybe being a Christian isn't where I'm supposed to go because I've been led this way, or I've listened to those men over there? Or what do you feel is the right way to approach those guys that are on the fence of straddling?
I say, open your book.
Simple as that, man.
This isn't an argument. Just open your book.
Yeah,
it's very clear. It's very, very clear. It's easy to get caught up in a war of words right now. Read those red ones.
When God speaks, listen, people.
Yeah,
the Gospels, man. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I want to ask a question to you, Kyle, because when you wrote this was not that long ago that you wrote this. This was a year ago, and you were almost. I told Wes, and I hated saying it like this, like you were almost ahead of the game, even though, or obviously there's still a whole lot of work to do, but you wrote this before all of this happened. I'm just curious what the reaction was like from your teammates, from the league, from fellow fans. Was there backlash, which I have to imagine there might've been a little bit of that too. What was that like, kind of receiving that feedback that maybe you weren't necessarily looking for or asking for, but hearing from, because that was so widely read by so many people?
Well, I felt like God put this on my heart, and I feel like I'm not gonna lie. There were times where I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. This feels like a lot. It is a hard space to walk into, especially as a white man, right?
Yeah.
But I felt like God kept on like nudging me, like, you have an opportunity. I don't think God tells you have to do anything, but He gives you an opportunity that we get to say yes to. And things just kept on lining up where it's like, so anyway, I say all that to say, I tried not to think about responses, because I feel like this is just the words that God gave me, right? Or the message that He wanted me to share. But the reaction, it felt like a lot to me. I'd never really put myself out there in anything that could create a confrontation. That's not really how I operate in life. Like, I try to be about love and serving and help the kids, and you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what my outreach has looked like mostly. I'd never really stepped into a space like this before, so I was a little nervous about that. But overall, there was negative, of course. There was silence, which was really interesting for me to take in. From people that that I had looked up to, especially in this space, this Christian space. People went silent on me. That shook me, probably more than anything, I would say. But there was so much good feedback, and not like the good job, like it's great, but like people crying, saying like, this, I needed to hear this. This was good stuff. That stuff so far outweighed the bad, and it just reaffirmed like this is who I want to be in life. I want to stand for people, right? I want to stand for love. Like everything that I read in this book, like I want to stand for that in the world. And I don't know. Like I said, I tried not to think too much about the reaction, but there certainly was a lot.
But even from players, like, I mean, you were still in a season, right? So you had to go play. Was that well received? I would imagine it had to be from the community of the NBA.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of people who reached out and said it meant a lot to them, and
good.
Some guys were emotional talking about it. Just, I mean, it's almost, honestly, it's a bit embarrassing, like that. Honestly, that, I mean, I don't think I said anything that was not what hasn't other like people of color, African Americans, have been saying for hundreds of years. I didn't feel like I said anything new. To get praise for this, like I was a bit embarrassed for us. Like we should be about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of reaction, I guess. And here we are a year later. And I don't know. I feel like God's working, and I hope I want to be in step with what He's trying to do.
Yeah, it's a tough space, man, and you really have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in addressing these issues. And to go back to the question, Jason, that you asked me, how did I feel when I saw George Floyd? I want to ask you two guys that. How did you feel when you saw that video, a 9-minute long video of that? How did you guys feel?
I'll start. I mean, it was horrific to see. This has been something in terms of this conversation, Wes, for me personally. I very rarely get asked questions, by the way. So this is weird for me, Wes. You're not supposed to ask me. I'm the host here. But I will say, for me, it was one of those, I knew right away that this one's different. And I don't know why I thought that. And then I was confirmed by that from people like Brian Laritz, who was on our show a couple days ago, Pastor Brian, and many others who I reached out to, not just going on Twitter and posting something, but actually texting or calling someone and saying, this isn't good. This is different, isn't it? And then you saw the reaction, and you continue to see the reaction. And the protest, the violence is a hard one for me. I can understand people are upset, but there's a lot of different reactions I have towards that, and even certainly towards the leadership and the divisiveness that you see within the country. But as a believer in Christ, as someone who loves Jesus and seeing what took place, my heart ached. It just ached. And I knew right away that this was going to be another unfortunate situation for my fellow Black brothers and sisters to have to say, are you getting this yet?
Yeah.
Are you getting this yet? And I don't know. For me, I had started to see this probably around the time Kyle wrote that article, but around a time a year ago, I had a change, and I probably did some heart surgery myself, Kyle, like you talked about. I will say one Bible verse that I've been clinging to even before all this was Psalm 51, where David says, create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit in me. And I've been praying. That's been my prayer for probably this year, for 2020, was, Lord, just create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit. And that clean heart and that renewing is something I've had to do for a couple of years, especially towards an issue like this. And been praying over the past few days, a lot of the same prayer of, Lord, just break my heart for what breaks yours. That's in one of the songs that I listen to as well, Christian songs. And that's really what my mindset is as a believer, is if this is breaking the heart of God, it's got to break my heart if I'm going to claim to be a follower of Christ. So that's kind of been my reaction, and certainly trying to talk to as many people as possible. Social media has been good for me, but also very toxic as well. And so I've been trying to limit that. But Also trying to listen through social media to the voices that I need to listen to. So that's kind of been mine. Kyle, I'm curious to see what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I was broken. And it wasn't just that. Like after Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, like I was messed up already.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I felt like I spent so much time just like crying the last bunch of weeks, just because the last time I felt this type of frustration from my friends and my teammates was when I had this awakening of sorts, right? And I didn't have any emotion. I was just kind of like, oh, that's a problem. I'm so sorry. Like I don't understand. And so now to feel the way I feel and see it through different eyes, like I've been broken.
Yeah.
And like I feel like I have a righteous anger in me that I'm still trying to process right now, right? That I don't know what to do with all the way. And you know, I can only imagine how you felt, Wesley, right? And I can only imagine how God feels looking down on all this, right? How much is His heart breaking, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think, you know, I think we're trying to figure out what to do with this, but I do think this does feel different, like you said. You know, I was in LA for the Rodney King riots, and from what people tell me, I was young. I was only like 8 or 9 years old back then, but there's that kind of energy right now, and people back then were so critical of the looting and the rioting, like they are right now. Like it felt like people were, like we were understanding as white Americans that our silence has been a huge part of this problem. Right. And felt like people were momentum. And then all of a sudden, oh, it's the looting and the rioting. I don't like that. And I just say, like, don't judge.
Yeah.
Right. For how you judge, you will be judged. You don't judge the process. Well, someone else doesn't like your silence. Right. And so I don't know. I guess where am I at as a white man in this thing? I'm just broken, and I feel like I'm supposed to sit here because this is going to reshape who I am. And that's where I feel like I'm supposed to be.
It's man, it goes back to what you said. Educate, listen, and support. And the big picture of it is we're all in this together. You know, 15 years 15 years from now, like I want my 4 kids to be playing with the Korvers, you know, going to school together and, you know, looking back on this issue as, man, you know, our fathers were a part of change, something that changed the history. And like you said, so many times the narrative gets hijacked because, again, the devil likes to sneak his head in any way he can. I remember, you know, back in Colin Kaepernick in 16 when he took a knee, you know, me and my teammates were asked from coaches, from owners, like, don't protest, you know, our ratings are going to go down. You know, the majority of our fan base, you know, don't believe in that. And it's like, the issue was never about the American flag. It was about liberty and justice for all. And if you sit there and say that, sing that national anthem and say that pledge, how can you go over those words and not really mean it? That just shows us like you really don't care. You just want to change it and continue to be selfish in your own ways. And like you said, you bring up a good point. So many people want to talk about the rioting and the looting. We've been unheard for so many times. It's like nobody knows how to express grief. When Colin Kaepernick takes a peaceful protest, when the NFL players, the NBA players, the other leagues join in and take a peaceful protest, we get called out of our names. We're told to shut up and dribble a basketball. We're told to, you know, go over here and do that. You're just an athlete. But so many times the devil wants to use his influence on others to silence our voice. And it goes back to what you're saying, man, that silent is a breeding place for negativity and for bad things in life, man. So we just got to continue to tear those walls down and stand up for your brother, because the great thing about sports is when you go in that locker room, we all put on the same jersey. We're all for one team. And that's how it should be in life. You should be for one team. It shouldn't be the sad thing about it is that we have to look at each other as Black. We have to look at each other as white, Latino, Asian. It shouldn't be that way. It should only be, this is my brother. I want to see him benefit. I want to see him prosper, be prosperous and be successful in life. And that's where I think where we need to be at. And I really think that this may be the turning point that we really need as a country, because the American population, the American people, we hold so much sway into the world, American athletes in general. And it's like, now the world is watching. How are you guys treating your own citizen? How is that love going to shed and spread throughout the world? And we're on the forefront of actually shining that light into a dark place, man. So I'm glad to have a brother like you on my side and on everybody's side that's on a good team fighting that good fight, because you have to always fight. It's kind of like spring cleaning. You know, if you continue to let things clutter up in your house, you got to clean it out. You got to check yourself. You got to look in the mirror. So that's where I think the message gets lost. You know, something bad happened. The Rodney King incident happened years ago. Oh, but years pass. We forget about it. We don't talk about it. Oh, we just pass it off to the side. And so many times it's uncomfortable. So I'm curious. I know in my household, we had racial talks, you know, and I'm sure your father spiritually led you guys to talk about things. And, you know, I share with Jason, like, we had different rules growing up in Georgia. My mom, my aunts and uncle would always say, before we leave the house, do not go in those white people's neighborhood. You might not make it out alive. And it was just like, what do you mean? I'm a little kid. I'm supposed to be able to play, laugh, and have fun on any street as long as I'm not causing trouble. Mm-hmm. And I can remember being kicked out of places, but just because we weren't the proper skin. And it's just like, you can't grow up in the world, man, and not promote that positive change. And I commend you again, man, for making that change. And we need more people on our team. We need more people to stand up for that. Gotta have that.
It's certainly going to take all of us, right? With some help from above, right? It's going to take a lot, but you know, I do think that while God plays a significant role in this, like, He gave us 2 hands and 2 feet, and a mouth and a brain and a heart, and he wants us to be a part of this. Like, I believe this with everything that I am, that we, the church, we can be better, right? I'm not trying to be mad at people or angry. I have enough. I can point everything that I point back at myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we can be better. Like, we just can, and we need to be. This is the good work in life to me. This is restoration, which is what we're supposed to be a part of.
Yeah, Wes. Let me just interject real quick here, Wes. I'm really fascinated to know from you, Wesley Woodyard, what God's been showing you during this time. What's He been teaching you? What's He been showing you? You talked about getting in God's word, especially. It's so crazy when you come from a pandemic into this. Yeah. And, you know, people were riled up and cooped up in the house, like Kyle said, and some people like being around their families, and that's great. But a lot of us were like waiting for the doors to open so that we could go out into, you know, society again. And then this happens, and now people are all over the place. But during this time, this COVID time, especially into the last 8-9 days and in a few weeks, what has God been showing you, Wes? And then you can kind of close it down here and ask Kyle one more question at the end here. But what's the Lord been showing you during this time?
Just to, you know, have a like you said, a heart transformation. And we had one of our leaders in the NFL, you know, make a statement on an interview, and so many people condemned him. But I just ask everybody who's going to watch this, how can you condemn somebody and call yourself a Christian? And Drew Brees stepped up, apologized for everything, and there are people still going to be upset with him. But me as a man, like, I know what's right and I know what's wrong. And as a man, you have to stand for what's right, because the world that I'm creating, my kids are going to live in it. Your kids are going to live in it. So I'm a firm believer in pouring back into our future, which are our kids, because they're the only things that matter. And like Cal said, it's not necessarily about how much community service you can do. It's about how much meaningful community service you can do. How much, as a man, how is it affecting you, because if you pour out negative energy, you're going to receive it back. It might not be today, it might not be next year, it might be 10 years from now when something evil happens to you. So you just got to be in this time, man. COVID really taught me to, like Kyle said earlier, it shows you what's essential and not essential in your life. And I can honestly say things happen for a reason. And what gives me hope in this moment is to know that Jesus has already covered me. And it's not hard for me to say that. And it's not hard for me to look back and be like, I can't believe that I just, I gave into that. But that's where I am as a man, and that's where I am as a Christian, because I know there's no hope. If I'm looking up to other men to prove something to me, I'll be lost forever. And unfortunately, that's where the world is today. We're lost, and nobody wants to take a stand. Nobody wants to be a leader.
That's good.
Yeah.
You want to ask that same question to Kyle? What are you learning from the Lord right now, Kyle?
Hey,
everything.
Change is hard. Change. I mean, a lot. What's been coming to me lately, change is hard. It's hard to make change, right? Usually it takes something like really significant for you to make like an abrupt change. But this COVID-19 has been like a reset to me, in a lot of ways. And I feel like there are ways where like it's almost like everything is perfectly aligned, how only God could do it, where it's like, you know what? You want to be someone different after this? Here's your moment. You got it right now. What do you want to do? Right? When I was growing up and I'd move, when I'd moved to a new city, I used to be like, okay, I'm going to have a girlfriend. I've never had a girlfriend before, but like to get a girlfriend when I'd been there a long time, I was nervous about having a girlfriend for the first time. But when I moved in 6th grade, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get a girlfriend right now. This is going to be something that I do. And that's a small thing. But like right now we have a moment, an incredible moment where it's like, you know what? I can be different. I can walk out of this thing and be a better person. And so whether that's the conversation we just had or whether that's something else, I don't know what God's doing in your life right now, but you have a moment right now where you can make a significant change and you can walk out into whenever this lives, I'm going to be a new person. What is it that you want to change? What is it that you want to do? And it's like this gift of like, there's a lot of hard stories right now in the world, right? But this right now, like you can choose to be someone different right now. And everyone's going to think it's okay. It's not going to be weird, you know? Right. And so to me, I've been asking myself, like, what does that look like for me? And I think God's got something for all of us in that.
Yeah. Wes, you want to close us out?
Yeah, I'll close it out with another with Wesley Woodyard, Jason Romano, and my man Kyle Korver, talking over his privilege. PlayerTribune.com. You can go and read it here. I want to end with a quote as well as a question from a fan, Peyton Griggs out of LaGrange, Georgia. But first, your quote says, "And I believe it's the responsibility of anyone on the privileged end of those inequalities to help make things right." Blessings on that, man. My man Peyton in LaGrange wanted me to ask you. He said, "How many jumpers do you take in a day?" And he said that most kids think that you learn how to shoot overnight. How is that? Like, what he wants to know, like, how did he get to be an NBA player like you?
You learn to shoot over a lot of nights. It's a lot of nights. You know what? It's just like anything else. The more you put into it, the better you get. It's like anything else, you know. Where I'm at in my life right now, it's kind of like I kind of compare it to like reading my Bible. I need to read a little bit every day. Yeah. But if I read too much, I don't want to read some tomorrow, right? I gotta have like these rhythms in my life, and it's the right amount. It's whatever I need. There's some days I need 500 shots, and there's some days I need like 25 shots. But I got to get my shot right, just like I got to get my heart right every day. And so that's kind of been my motto.
Yeah, man. Hey, Jason, thanks for allowing me to come on your platform and talk to Kyle. Kyle, man, I really appreciate you for like I said earlier, being comfortable with being uncomfortable and being in those spaces and spurring this conversation and sparking up challenge within your community, within my community. And I just want to give you the time, if you have any last final words that you would like to say to the people.
Nah, man, God bless you guys. You guys are doing good work. And come on, let's keep on going. Let's be someone new.
That's good.
Amen.
That's it. And I'll just say this. I'm excited that the NBA is back. That's just from a
Hey.
fan
Yeah.
perspective here.
Hey,
I mean, we still got a
TV,
little
right?
ways, but let's go. Let's go.
Hey,
Get some
hey,
summer league basketball for real. Right,
Cal, his real question was, who's a better player, LeBron or
I don't want to talk about that.
I thought I was going to ask that.
Hey,
We're gonna spend
man.
another hour talking about the Last Dance, right? Is that what we're gonna do?
Yeah.
Wes?
God,
Come on.
oh man,
Oh,
how
man,
about that?
Hey, Cal, man, I appreciate your time, my brother, man.
Gotcha.
I'm great.
Appreciate
I
you
got
guys.
a chance to talk to you. Like I said, man, I was a fan from far. Of course, I didn't like you a lot because you used to hit a lot of threes versus teams that I was going for. But when you play for the Hawks, that's my hometown, my home state. So I'm like, man, I got to pull
ATL.
from him. I got to pull from him. So, man, God
ATL.
bless you
Come
and your
on.
family. God bless you and your marriage, man. And just continue. Hey, go and get you 20 years like Vince Carter.
I don't know. That's my wife.
Kyle, thanks, man. Really appreciate you.
All right, guys.
All right.